One of the biggest mysteries in Elden Ring is Radagon of the Golden Order, king consort of Queen Marika and second Elden Lord. At the end of the game, you will discover that Radagon is actually none other than Marika herself. But this puts more questions than it answers. How are they the same being? Were they always the same? How did they produce offspring? What's this circular shape behind Queen Marika's statues, and what does it have to do with the DLC? I have found a super hidden image in the DLC trailer that may answer a huge question. Hopefully we will answer all of those questions today. Let me explain. Upon looking into every statue of Marika, you would notice a common trend. She is in a crucified state and there is a circular shape behind the statue. But what is it? At first glance it may look like the well-known infinity symbol, but this symbol in myth is associated with snakes, a snake biting its own tail. We already went over that in Messmer's video, so it wouldn't make sense for it to be the symbol of Marika even if she is called the Eternal. Also, the shape itself isn't symmetrical like the infinity symbol. So what is it? Let's look at this concept art of Marika. If we put the statues side by side to this, we would notice a couple of things. First, this part of the dress is identical to this shape, and the end of the dress is identical to the end of this spiral shape. Second is that dress have the same carving as the statue, those golden runes. So, this shape behind Marika's statues are representing her dress. But what does her dress symbolize? If we look at those paintings of Marika and Radagon side by side, we would notice that the dress is shared by both of them. So all of this is not random. This has a hidden meaning. I believe this is Marika's concealing veil. Let's look at the concealing veil talisman. Side by side, we would notice that the fabric is super reminiscent of Marika's dress. But if this is Marika's veil, then what does it hide exactly? Marika is full of secrets that she doesn't want people to know. She concealed an entire DLC for 2 years, for God's sake. This is the entwined umbilical cord talisman. You may have not seen it before, because this is cut content. It didn't make it to the final game. And yes, we shouldn't put too much emphasis on cut content, but hear this out. First, the talisman looks a lot like the shape behind Marika, like they are modeled after each other. Even this imperfection here, it looks the same on the statue. So what does this talisman do? It reads as follows. Mysterious circular object that's oddly warped. Changes the demeanor of the wearer's actions. First time I read this, I didn't understand anything. Demeanor means your outward behavior. It includes the way you stand, walk, and facial expressions. Basically, your animations in gaming terms. In order to fully understand, we need to look at the reversal ring from Dark Souls 3. Its function is to cause males to perform female actions. Basically switch animations from male to female and vice versa. Does this feels familiar, changing from female to male and vice versa? I think the shape behind Marika is her veil, and it hides the fact that she and Radagon are the same. Also, it's a nice Easter egg from software, just like the statue in Leyndell that reveals the secret. But this doesn't add anything, right? It's just a cool Easter egg at this point. We all know that Marika and Radagon are the same. It's the plot of the game. That's what I thought until the DLC trailer. The DLC trailer brought so much to the table. There is so much hidden details and hints. One of those is this incredible shot from Messmer's throne room. We can see behind him a statue of Marika. You probably saw this image before. But we all focused on the relation between Marika and Messmer and didn't notice this. Marika's veil, as we will call it, is behind the statue. We can argue that it may not be it. The top part isn't shown, but the end spiral part of Marika's dress is very clearly the same. So I dug deeper and found even more well-hidden detail. If we went over to the end screen of the trailer where they are showing us the merchandise, we can see here the art book of the DLC. But if we zoomed in quite a bit, we can see this. This is super low res, but this is clearly a statue of Marika. A beheaded one to be precise. But what is that behind her? This is super low res, but we can clearly see that veil behind her. This is huge. If our theory about the shape behind Marika being her veil is correct, and this veil hide her dew of nature, then this would turn our world upside down. This means that Marika was Radagon way before his first appearance in the Liurnian Moors. This statue is from the Shadowlands, the same place where she ascended to godhood, and the statue being there but beheaded communicates two things. First is that Marika was of high status at this point, perhaps fully ascended, that's why there is a statue of her. Second, being beheaded means it was done out of hatred from an opposing faction. We can even go as far as saying this was done after the veiling of the Shadowlands, when Marika lost control over it. But in all cases, this is way before the Liurnian Wars and the first appearance of Radagon. This may even explain why Messmer has the characteristic red hair of Radagon. If Messmer is the banished firstborn of Queen Marika, which would not be the first time FromSoft pulls this out, then how does he have red hair if Radagon came into the scene way after that? This wouldn't make any sense in regard to other famous origin theories of Radagon. This includes Radagon is a champion that Marika chose and merged with after Liurnian Wars. Radagon is a mimic deer. Radagon is a Messmer god. All of those theories would mean Radagon is quite young in the timeline of Elden Ring. He wasn't always Marika. What I am saying is that Radagon was always Marika. This may have been the reason she was chosen as an Emberian in the first place. I'm not saying Messmer is 100% that child of Radagon, but this red hair color is clearly trying to communicate something. Now let's go over why this dual nature of Marika may have been the reason she was chosen by the Greater Will. The origin of this dual male and female nature is alchemy. It's called the divine rebus. The rebus is the end product of the alchemical great work, or the magnum opus. The magnum opus is the personification of the philosopher's stone, two beings in one body, a being of both male and female qualities as indicated by two heads within a single body. And the rebus is portrayed standing on a dragon. This being is obtained through processing a material called the prima materia, or the first matter. There is a lot of talk about what the prima materia is in alchemy, but we can summarize it as a material that houses opposing properties, like male and female. The rebus is the personification of the stone, which gives the elixir of life, the elixir of immortality, hence Marika, the eternal. We can see here a depiction of the divine rebus, with two heads in one body. The rebus depicted is standing atop the dragon that governs the direction of the world. But in our case, they are standing atop the Elden beast. The Elden beast is the Elden Ring itself, and therefore it's what controls the lands between. Marika housing a dual nature is perfect for making a being that can be the vessel of the Elden Ring, a being that can be eternal. Perhaps that's why she was chosen by the Greater Will in the first place. Now let's try to explain Radagon and his timeline like you have never heard before. The first appearance of Radagon was during the Liurnian War with the Carians. The dialogue is quite weird. He seems to appear out of nowhere in charge of a golden army, but the Carians were formidable and stood their ground against the forces of the Erdtree. In a very smart move, Radagon married the Carian queen Renalla and the war ended. But what if I tell you that this was far more smart and strategic move from Marika herself? Radagon was never sent to fight Renalla. He was sent to marry Renalla from the start. This act was to achieve two things. First, the obvious one, was to destroy Renalla from the inside, as Marika knew the Carians were too strong. The second motive was much more cunning than that. But first, we need to go over something called the Tria Prima, or the three primes. When mercury is joined with sulfur, they produce salt. Mercury represents the White Queen, which is associated with the moon, and sulfur represents the Red King, which is associated with the sun. Obviously, the Red King or sulfur is Radagon. It's even more obvious when you look at sulfur symbol. Radagon is always portrayed in a T-pose, which bears incredible resemblance to sulfur symbol. But we have two White Queens, Marika and Renalla. Renalla is a full moon queen, therefore she's Mercury. But what about Marika? She can't be the moon in any shape or form, but she's literally the symbol of Mercury. The symbol of Mercury is literally the female symbol and an arc on top of it. So a female hanging from an arc. Does this feel familiar? So now we understand what is mercury and sulfur. But what is salt? Salt is the product of the alchemical marriage between those two materials. Salt is a demigod. The Emberians who can succeed Marika as the god of the age, and the demigods that can become Elden lords. And that's why Radagon was sent by Marika to marry Renalla. He wasn't a perfect sulfur, while Marika was a god, the perfect mercury. So Radagon needed to be refined to be able to produce the perfect salt, in a process called solve et coagula, which means separation and combination. It's done in order to perfect the materials to produce a perfect salt and the philosopher's stone. The perfect offspring is what Marika always wanted, an offspring that can succeed her. She tried many times, but she failed. At first, she tried with Godfrey, which resulted in Morgoth, Mohg, and Godwyn. Morgoth and Mohg were omens. They were cursed in the eye of the Golden Order. They were very far from perfect. While Godwyn was great, he wasn't chosen as an Emberian and he was murdered. So it seems that Godfrey wasn't fit to produce a perfect offspring. At this exact moment, Marika decided that in order to have the perfect offspring, she needed her consort to be a perfect being, herself. So she split off Radagon from herself to achieve this purpose, but Radagon wasn't perfect yet. At this time, the Carians were getting too powerful, so she sent Radagon herself to marry Renalla and destroy her from within, while in the same time perfect Radagon by joining him with another White Queen, and it was successful in a way. First, the Carians were defeated, and the marriage of Radagon and Renalla was successful. They produced an Emberian, Ranni the Witch. They even produced Radagon, who was the strongest of the demigods, fit to become Elden Lord himself. But there was a problem. Ranni didn't believe in the greater will and she didn't want to be an Emberian. At this moment, Marika banished Godfrey and called back her other self, Radagon, which destroyed Renalla. After Radagon's marriage, he was refined. He was thought by Marika to have become perfect. A question that puzzled all of us for a long time is how did Marika and Radagon, being the same person, we need to say that without getting censored, how did they mate? What I am saying now is that they didn't. It was an alchemical marriage. Marika and Radagon were always one. She split him off to refine and perfect him. When he was called back, it was to join with him once more, to form the divine rebus again, and to produce the perfect offspring. So it was an alchemical process, and I will prove it to you right now. We know that Marika and Radagon marriage resulted in two demigods. Both of them were Emberians because they were born from a single god, according to Millennia's remembrance, and this in a way confirms that Marika and Radagon were always one. Not just after they married, but I will prove to you now that their marriage was an alchemical process. In order to make the philosopher's stone, you need 4 stages: blackening, albedo, yellowing, and rubedo. The blackening of the substance is described as putrefaction. Putrefaction is the decay of organic matter. It means to rot. You see where I'm going here? This stage resulted in Melania, the goddess of wrath. The next stage is albedo, or the whitening of a substance. It's described as purifying a material to bring light and clarity to the prima materia. And this stage resulted in
pure and radiant. He wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men. There is nothing more terrifying.
the pure, radiant was light. Miquella was born, the most fearsome Empyrean, the perfect offspring. But before we go over Miquella, we will go quickly over the last two stages. Those stages is yellowing and rubedo, which is reddening. At those stages, the Philosopher's Stone is done. At first, it's yellow, which is the color of gold, and then it turns red. Sounds familiar, right? We literally see this when we enter the Earthtree, when Marika's hair turns from yellow to red. And I believe this is why we find them in this stone shape. It's because they turned into the Philosopher's Stone. Now let's talk about Miquella, the successor of Queen Marika. Miquella was thought to be the perfect offspring, the successor to Queen Marika. Let's read what Melania said about her brother. My brother will keep his promise. He possesses the wisdom, the allure of a god. He is the most fearsome Empyrean of all. We can literally see him in the trailer emitting with light. He possesses female qualities, which seems to be an important aspect of the god of the age. He even has a dual nature like his mother, in the form of his speculated alter ego, Saint Trina. He made the Helix-tree to replace the Earth-tree. He made unalloyed gold to help cure Melania's wrath. He made Miquella's needle to ward off the influence of outer gods. He even inherited the elixir of life from the Philosopher's Stone. The stone was thought to produce the elixir of life which granted immortality, but this was a blessing and a curse of Miquella. He wasn't perfect after all. He was blessed by eternal youth, but he was trapped in a kid's body. He couldn't become an adult. Like his mother, he tried to refine that property by making his cocoon. Just like Marika refined her other self, Radagon, to produce the perfect offspring. But before he tried to do that, Marika knew he wasn't perfect at the end. That was the final nail to the coffin for Marika. I was always puzzled by this dialogue, but I believe we have explained it.
O Radagon, leal hound of the Golden Order, thou art yet to become me. Thou art yet to become a god. Let us be shattered, both. Mine other self.
I never understood what this meant. She calls him her other self, but he's not a god yet. But how, if they are the same? But we understand now. He is her other self, but he's not perfect after all. He's not a god like her. The process of refining Radagon failed. They couldn't produce the perfect salt, the perfect demigod. That's why Marika finally decided to shatter themselves. Let us be shattered, both, mine other self. And this was the explanation of the being and entire timeline of Radagon of the Golden Order. Hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed, and tell me in the comment section what you think. Hopefully I have provided the best explanation of Radagon that I can. Stay tuned for the next videos. Until then, farewell, fellow Tarnished.